Hey guys, and welcome to Construct 3 Behaviors. So I thought it would be a cool idea to do a little tutorial series on the behaviors in Construct 3. I want to get a little bit better at understanding what they all do, and I thought I would help you guys out at the same time. So basically I'm gonna go through a quick project rundown. You guys can pretty much do this in any size project, but I'm just going to go through the things that I use. So 640 by 960 is our size. Portrait, I believe, lends itself really nicely to mobiles, especially when you're doing one-handed play. We've got the layout set to scale outer, so full screen, so the project set to scale outer, full screen mode. Over here, this means that it's going to show more on the sides or the top and bottom if the screens are bigger than the project itself. So obviously some phones are going to be taller, and in that case you'll see more if you've placed some objects outside of this area. Like if I place something here or stretch the background out, it's going to show more to the top and bottom, on the top and bottom. If I am on an iPad or something which is more of a square resolution, it might show a little bit more on the sides. So you might want to just stretch the background to fill up a bit more than the stage itself. I'm going to refer to this part here as the stage, okay? All right, guys, so the one more thing we've got, unbounded scrolling on the layout itself ticked. This means that instead of locking the stage to the top left, it is now going to be nice in the middle of the screen. And this is really useful for doing anything like camera shake effects, etc, etc. Okay, you don't want it to be locked in the corner. Now I've got two layers. The free edition only allows two layers, so basically I trying to keep it within those limits so you guys can learn in the free edition, and before you decide whether you want to buy Construct 3 or not, it's up to you. But that's why I'm using two layers. So BG and blocky. On BG I've made a background slightly of white, as you see. I'm a little bit colorblind, so I'm not going to be trying to guess what color that is. I can see the main colors, but some of the shades get a bit hard. So I'm going to move that back in here, and blocky over here. Okay, so they're on their respective layers. So BG is on BG and blocky is on blocky. Blocky is our little square character, and we're going to use blocky for all our different tutorials. Now I've enabled snap to grid on the layout, so we can easily snap blocky to the grid. I like using the computer convention 32 by 32, 64 64, 96 96, 128 128. Okay, it just makes it easier to be able to snap to the grid. If you see how nicely it fits here, I can take the grid down to 16 by 16 or make it a little bit bigger, but it works really well this way. Okay, so most of the time I make my characters somewhere around those multiples of 2. Okay, now here is all our stuff. I think that's the rundown there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to tap on blocky, and we're going to add a behavior. Now add new behavior. Now we're not going to start with attributes. Instead I'm going to start with general, go through those, then I'm going to go on to movements, and lastly I'm going to go into attributes. So I'm going to do one a week and try and play around with it as much as I can to really see what it does and what you can do with it. Okay, so let's add anchor. Now that we have anchor added, it automatically makes it viewport left and viewport top. So the first thing that is important to understand with the anchor behavior is that these two control where it's going to be locked to, the top edge and the left edge. Okay, they're the ones that control where on the screen is going to be placed. Now the other two, the right edge and the bottom edge, seem to control the scale or the size of the sprite. So I'm going to give you an example. If I've got this disabled, and I'm going to, let's say, put this sprite over here. Let's click play. So as you see, this is our stage. I've made the background deliberately that size. The sprite is always going to be at the exact place I've placed it on the stage. Okay, now if I enable, and let's say if we want to create something like a little settings button or something, if I enable this, the left edge is now being locked to viewport left, and the top edge is now being locked to viewport top. So if you have a look now, no matter where I scale this, it is always going to update and stay in the same position that I've looked at to. Now, what actually took me a little while to realize is that you don't have to have the sprite right against the corner, and you can literally place the sprite anywhere in the layout. I'll just give you an example. So I can put one here and one here, and if they're all set to lock viewport left, viewport top, for example, then they're all going to stay and lock to the corner at the relative distance that I've basically showed on here. Okay, so pretty awesome. It works really well. Let's say I want to do the opposite and I want to lock the to viewport right. Now here is where the confusion can lie. Don't use the right edge. Instead, you're still locking the left edge to viewport right. Okay, so we're going to take it over here, and it is going to do exactly the same thing, but it's going to lock it to the other side. See? So this is where people can get confused with the anchor behavior, and I got confused myself. These two control the locking, so the left edge and the top edge. Now, I'm going to give you another little example. And let's say I'm going to now right edge to viewport right. Okay, so now I'm locking this right edge to viewport right. Look what's going to happen now. It is now, if you can kind of work it out, it seems to be, oh, okay, sorry guys, this is what I wanted to do. I'm locking them both to viewport right. What I actually want to do, lock this one to viewport left. Okay, so we're still locking it to here, but we're locking the right edge viewport right, which should control its size. So now we'll try this again. If I stretch this out, you will see the sprite suddenly stretching out. Now, if you have a really quick look, what is actually happening is the sprite seems to be stretching relative to how much space is available, extra space is available on the sides. See what I mean? So this space here is how much the sprite is stretching out by. So right here is relative to the size of the sprite. Okay, now the same thing will happen if you do the bottom. So if I do the bottom edge to viewport bottom, now the same thing will happen. If I stretch the screen taller, again, see what's happening there. So there are some really cool things you can do with this. I've been trying to think of ways to use it. I haven't really figured out a use case for myself apart from one particular thing. If you are, let's just untick this, and I'm going to give you the example that I've come up with. Okay, let's say this is your background, and we've locked the sprite to the top left corner. Now it should all be, yep, perfect. Okay, now as you see, this is your background, and if I stretch it out, it doesn't fill up the screen. Okay. Now, you might want it to fill up the entire screen. It might be a color or a gradient or something along those lines, and you want to stretch it out. It might be, who knows? It might be ground, and you want it to be, be the same width as all the time. Like let's say you load it up on an iPad or an Android, and you want the ground to just stretch out instead of making it longer by yourself. You might want it to update. What you want to do is we'll click behaviors again and add anchor to the background. And what we're going to do is we're going to lock the viewport left edge to viewport left, the top edge to viewport top, and right and bottom. Now what is going to happen is it's going to scale the background no matter, see, it's updating the background to whatever size I set it to. So whether it's tall it always updates it, or wide, it always updates it to the right size. So this is a really good way of using it. Hopefully you understand how this works. Now, always check on your sprites that everything is set up correctly as well. I mean, anchor points can sometimes mess with things a little bit, so make sure that you know, your anchor points are where you want them. Normally, if I've got 2 frames, like let's see, our blocky has 2 frames here, which is something I also wanted to go through. You want to make sure that the anchor point is in the same place on both. An easy way of doing that is just by clicking here, quick assign it, and then go to whole animation and to all animations. Okay, now just so you understand, if you have a quick look, you will see that blocky is actually blinking. So I just wanted to give you a really quick reason why. I've added a little random behavior, basically random condition with some actions, random anywhere between 0 and 1, a float number or a decimal point number between 0 and 1 plus 1 second. So we want to wait at least 1 second plus some time between 0 and 1. We set the animation frame to 1, then wait 0.1 seconds and then go back to 0. Okay, and that is what is causing this. So that is it, pretty simple there. So every 1 second plus anywhere between 0 and 1, that's what happens. Now, I think that's pretty much it as far as the anchor behavior goes. Yeah, it's up to you guys to think of what you can do with it and how you can use the different scaling methods here. Just remember, these 2 control the locking and these 2 control the sizes, and you can always enable or disable it within code as well. All right, so yeah, hope you enjoyed this first episode. I'm gonna make the blocky file or the project, the bare bones project, available, so you guys can just download it and test these behaviors without having to create everything on your own. Okay, hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you guys in the next construct behaviors.